How do generational curses operate in families, and how can we supersede the iniquity of our elders? The law of sowing and reaping is a universal law, and that law says a person will reap what they sow because everything starts in seed form. So the curse is to work the ground, but our work does not actually yield the product that we have sown. The law of increase works in conjunction with sowing and reaping because seeds don't stay as seeds, they multiply, they reproduce. So for example, we have children. We have children with the expectation that they too will supersede us as parents, that they will do greater things than what us as parents have done. This is why the law of honoring mother and father is at work, because in every family we are accountable to our elders. We live to honor their accomplishments and uphold our family's values. We are called to honor our elders. That means we value their position to hold us accountable, but we do not subject ourselves to the familiar spirits that are operating in their bloodline. We have emotional relationships with our families, so we want to be pleasing to our parents. We want our mothers and fathers to accept us, and our grandparents and our parents have modeled to us what it means to be a man and a woman. So our beings are linked, even at a cellular level. That's why we look like our parents and take on their traits. Some of us can recognize the generational issues in our family, such as maybe breast cancer that shows up in grandmother, mother, and then daughter, or the allergies that maybe are shared by multiple family members, or reoccurring financial struggles, the infidelity in men in the family who always leave their wives, or one of the worst strongholds that I've seen is that has a ripple effect in generations, which is unforgiveness and resentment. We are discerning the generational issues and clearing them because we are called to observe and discern. We're not called to judge because the law of judgment that states when we judge, the measure that we use to judge will be measured back to us. Breaking spiritual bondage requires strategy because one size doesn't fit all. Every family is different. Firstly, let's identify and observe generational patterns and blockages that you may have noticed. What agitates you about maybe particular family members that you have? Are they tolerating something that you see as a compromise? Is there any trauma or traumatic responses in the family? And how do your parents cope with high stress? These are some really important questions that may evoke some emotion because some of the situations and circumstances we find ourselves in can be quite emotional. But let's get curious and do a further investigation. If there are generational issues that present as curses, what family members display the same patterns? Has there been reason for you to suspect that there are maybe accommodating familiar spirits? Maybe you've seen these spirits in dreams or nightmares, or there might be significant signs of manifestations in your family. Number two, if any of these spiritual laws I mentioned previously have been overlooked, there may be a need to heal the soul ties with family members. And this is in the form of a forgive and a release. We don't continue in relationship with people who breach our boundaries or do evil to us. But we are called to release forgiveness to them because justice is not applied by our standards and holding resentment ends up becoming a curse to ourselves. Healing soul ties goes hand in hand with soul healing because diseases and genetic disorders can actually be traced back to thoughts and the accommodating emotions because emotions become the stressor on the genes. And I've mentioned previously that the soul is the center of emotions. The emotional state can trigger the body's stress responses and end up exasperating genes. So healing generational curses that show up as chronic illnesses or even chronic injuries can really start out as the soul healing. And if anger or say resentment is not resolved, it, for example, can be stored in the body and may start with teeth grinding during the night, but progress to maybe a dysregulation of a nervous system. Another way to deal with spiritual blockages are declarations that put these dark spirits on notice and clear out agreements made maybe knowingly or even unknowingly. We do these declarations and we move into contrary action. It's the diametric opposite of what we were doing previously, which actually syncs with the declarations, because ultimately we action what we believe. I really want to eliminate any fear that we may be experiencing because we don't actually have to be a victim to what any of our family members have been a victim to. We're really going to deploy a lot of courage to dig into these sensitive places and face what we may have been avoiding. And I know that when we set the intention to solve the problems and be the circuit breaker for our generational line, help will always be given to the people who set that intention.